So today, we're diving into a really raw, first-hand account of the 1947 Kashmir War. We're going to see the conflict through the eyes of someone who was right in the thick of it, Major General Akbar Khan. His book, Raiders in Kashmir, gives us this incredible ground-level view of the chaos that would go on to shape the subcontinent forever. Khan kicks things off not with some dry political analysis, but with this almost mythical image. These were the tribal fighters, the so-called raiders, appearing out of the mist in the Kashmir Valley. You can tell right away this isn't going to be a story about grand strategy. It's about the raw, unpredictable nature of irregular warfare. But here's the thing. These raiders didn't just appear in a vacuum. And Khan is really clear about this. Before they ever set foot in Kashmir, the situation there was already explosive. He doesn't describe it as a peaceful paradise, but as a political volcano, just waiting to erupt. To get why, you have to rewind to the chaotic summer of 1947. The British are leaving, and all these semi-independent princely states have to make a choice. Join India or join Pakistan. But Kashmir, with its Hindu ruler and Muslim majority, well, it just didn't decide. And as the weeks ticked by, things got ugly. Reports of violence started trickling out, an internal revolt started to brew, and that window for a peaceful choice was slamming shut. And this is where you see this huge disconnect between what was expected and what was actually happening. From Pakistan's point of view, as Khan lays it out, Kashmir should have been a slam dunk. You've got a huge Muslim majority, all the economic ties pointed to Pakistan. It just made sense. But the reality on the ground, it was way more complicated. The Maharaja was stalling, a controversial border decision opened up a new land route to India, and key pro-Pakistan leaders were in prison. So the Maharaja wasn't just sitting on a fence, he was, as Khan puts it, sitting on a volcano. And then, in late October, that volcano finally blew. The internal revolt was suddenly overtaken by a completely new force. And this is where the story of the raiders really kicks into high gear. October 23rd. This is the day the whole game changes. Thousands of armed tribesmen from Pakistan's frontier regions pour into Kashmir. Khan describes it as this chaotic convoy of civilian trucks. This was not a formal invasion by any stretch. It was a decentralized, almost spontaneous force that just immediately started overwhelming the state's troops. And they moved fast. I mean, unbelievably fast. In just 5 days, they covered 115 miles, just smashing through the demoralized state forces and racing towards the capital, Srinagar. The speed of it all just sent total shockwaves through the region. The effect was immediate. The Maharaja, completely terrified, literally fled his own capital. Seeing his entire state about to collapse, he finally made the decision he'd been putting off for months. On October 27th, he signed the papers to officially join India. And India's response was instant. They began airlifting regular army troops directly into Srinagar to defend the city. Okay, so this brings us to what is maybe the most crucial turning point in this whole story. The raiders had victory in their sights. The capital, Srinagar, was right there for the taking. But then, everything just stopped. 4 miles. That's how close they got. Khan says he was there himself. He could see the twinkling lights of Srinagar just down the road. All that was stopping them was a single roadblock set up by the Indian Army. They were literally at the gates of the city. But what's so wild is that right before this final push, the tribal force just stopped for 2 whole days in a town called Baramulla. 2 days where they could have just walked into an undefended, terrified capital. Khan is absolutely convinced that this delay was the single moment that decided the entire war. So the million-dollar question is, why? Why on earth did they stop? You know, Khan mentions hearing rumors about arguments over leadership, but he never really gets a straight answer. What is crystal clear, though, is the result. Those 2 days gave India just enough time to fly in the soldiers and the gear they needed to fortify Srinagar and set up that final roadblock. The window of opportunity was slamming shut. You can almost feel Khan's frustration here. As a professional soldier, he saw a simple military fix. He figured a couple of armored cars could easily smash that roadblock. He even got volunteers ready to go. But the political leadership vetoed it. They were terrified it would look like a direct Pakistani army attack and trigger an all-out war with India. The moment and the opportunity was lost. So what happens next?
is just a complete, stunning reversal. The unstoppable advance suddenly turns into a full-blown retreat. And this is where Khan himself is dragged from the sidelines right into the fight, trying desperately to stop a total collapse.
And at the heart of the problem was this fundamental clash of warfare styles. The tribesmen were absolute masters of hit-and-run tactics, of ambushes in the hills. That's their world. They were not built, temperamentally or tactically, to fight a conventional battle against a regular army that was digging in with artillery and air support. The fight for Srinagar had become a fight they were never going to win.
So, realizing they couldn't take the city and not willing to get bogged down in a static fight, the raiders did what they do best. They just vanished. Khan describes how this huge armed force, the tribal Lashkar, just disappeared. 1 minute they're there, the next they're gone. It left this incredibly dangerous vacuum between the advancing Indian army and the Pakistan border.
So, who's left holding the bag? Who's left to face this advancing Indian army? Get this, 12 men. That's it. Akbar Khan and about a dozen other volunteers. An entire front that days before had threatened to win the war was now being held by just 12 guys.
What Khan and his tiny crew did next was straight out of a guerrilla warfare textbook. They started blowing up bridges to slow down the Indian tanks. They used hit-and-run tactics to make the Indians think they were a much bigger force. Their whole goal wasn't to win, it was just to buy time. For 6 brutal days, they fought a desperate delaying action, falling back from bridge to bridge until they finally managed to stop the Indian advance at a defensible spot called Chakoti. Against all odds, they had held the line. And that desperate defense? It actually worked. It bought just enough time for local volunteers and even some of the tribesmen to come back and form a new front. And just as this happened, the harsh Himalayan winter began to set in and the whole war just ground to a halt. But, holding the line is one thing. Actually winning is a whole different ballgame. Khan makes it painfully clear that the pro-Pakistan forces, now called the Azad forces, were constantly fighting with one hand tied behind their back. They were always short on ammo, there was no real central command to plan strategy, and they were basically just a collection of local militias trying to take on an organized, modern army. So by the end of the year, it was pretty clear to everyone that a quick military victory wasn't happening for either side. India took the issue to the brand new United Nations, shifting the fight from the battlefield to the diplomatic stage. And as heavy snow blanketed the mountains, the front lines basically froze in place, locking both armies into a bitter stalemate. And that's really where Khan's initial account leaves us. The lightning raid was over, the desperate defense had worked, and now a fragile, frozen front line was drawn across the land. It leaves us with the same question that has echoed down through the decades. With the fight now stuck and the whole world watching, what future awaited Kashmir?